Welcome to News Nexus. Today, we're diving into a story that feels like history repeating itself. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s was one of the darkest chapters in American history, when severe drought, failed farmland, and giant dust storms forced hundreds of thousands of families off their land. Many believed such a disaster could never happen again. But now, as the climate crisis intensifies, new warning signs are emerging across America's heartland. Could the United States be heading toward a new Dust Bowl? And if so, what would that mean for farmers, food prices, and the nation as a whole? Main script. To understand today's challenges, we need to revisit history. In the early 1930s, years of poor farming practices combined with prolonged drought across the Great Plains. Farmers had plowed up millions of acres of natural grasslands to plant wheat. Without deep roots to hold the soil, the land became fragile. When the rain stopped and winds picked up, huge clouds of dust swept across Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and beyond. Crops failed, cattle died, families abandoned their homes and migrated west, many heading to California in search of survival. That environmental and human tragedy became known as the Dust Bowl. Nearly a century later, scientists fear conditions are building for another. The key drivers today are different, yet connected. Climate change, industrial farming, water depletion, and worsening drought cycles. Across states like Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Texas, rainfall patterns are shifting, groundwater supplies are shrinking, and extreme heat waves are scorching crops. One of the most pressing concerns is the depletion of the Ogallala Aquifer, an underground water source that has powered U.S. agriculture for decades. Stretching beneath 8 states, this aquifer allowed farmers to turn dry plains into fertile farmland. But decades of pumping have drained it faster than nature can replenish. In parts of Texas and Kansas, wells are already running dry. Without this lifeline, farms risk reverting to dust. Rising global temperatures are also intensifying drought cycles. Heat waves across the Midwest and Southwest are lasting longer, and when rain does arrive, it often comes as sudden floods rather than steady moisture. This unpredictability makes farming far riskier. Crops that once thrived in these regions are now vulnerable to failure. Soil erosion adds another layer of risk. Farming practices have improved since the 1930s, but large-scale industrial agriculture still leaves land exposed. Bare fields after harvest are easily blown away by strong winds. Combined with climate extremes, the soil that sustains America's breadbasket is once again at risk of vanishing into the air. The potential consequences are staggering. America's Great Plains produce much of the nation's wheat, corn, and beef. If drought and dust storms make vast areas unproductive, food supplies will shrink, prices will soar, and rural communities will collapse. Already, farmers in Texas and Kansas are reporting lower yields and financial strain. Many are selling off cattle because there's simply no grass or water to sustain them. This isn't just a rural issue. It's a national and even global one. The U.S. is a major grain exporter. If harvests collapse, global food markets will feel the shock. Prices for bread, meat, and processed foods could spike around the world, pushing vulnerable nations closer to crisis. The human impact cannot be ignored. Just as the 1930s Dust Bowl forced mass migration, today's crisis could trigger new waves of climate migration. Farmers who can't sustain their land may abandon rural areas, move into cities, or cross state lines. This movement could reshape demographics, economies, and even politics across America. We're already seeing warning signs. Dust storms have returned in states like Texas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. In 2023, one such storm in Illinois caused a deadly highway pileup, as drivers were blinded by clouds of soil lifted from nearby fields. These incidents are haunting reminders of the Dust Bowl era, now colliding with the modern climate crisis. So, what's being done? Some farmers are adapting through regenerative agriculture, planting cover crops to protect the soil, rotating fields, and conserving water. There's growing use of drought-resistant seeds and smarter irrigation systems. Federal and state programs are encouraging soil conservation. But the scale of the challenge is immense, and adaptation may not be happening fast enough. Experts warn that without bold action, cutting greenhouse gas emissions, conserving water, and rethinking how we farm, parts of America's breadbasket could face conditions worse than the 1930s within our lifetimes. Some studies even suggest that by the middle of this century, the southern Great Plains could see dust storms and droughts far more extreme than anything experienced before. Imagine what that future looks like. Grocery bills climbing every week. Families forced to cut back on basics. Farmers facing bankruptcy. Small towns across the heartland becoming ghost towns. Dust clouds once again sweeping across highways and neighborhoods. This isn't just a nightmare scenario. It's a likely outcome if current trends continue. But there is still hope. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s was partly man-made, but it also led to reforms and conservation efforts that changed farming practices. Today, the stakes are higher, but so is our knowledge and technology. With investment in sustainable agriculture, smarter water use, and decisive climate action, America can still avoid the worst. The question isn't whether America faces the risk of another Dust Bowl. The real question is whether we have the will to prevent it. Shrinking aquifers, rising heat, and struggling farms are clear warnings. This is no longer a distant threat. It's unfolding now. The choices we make today will decide whether future generations inherit thriving farmland or barren dust. This is News Nexus, bringing you the stories that shape our world. If you found this discussion valuable, remember to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into the issues that matter most. And let us know in the comments, do you believe America is heading toward a new Dust Bowl, or can we still change course? Until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and stay engaged.